Hello everyone, and welcome to the Friday edition of the Status Chat. Today's title is Higher Wage Earners Are More Fearful of AI, episode 296 to 2726. So we're just about out of February. I don't know why that's such a difficult word to say sometimes, but February. I think we've got a consonant in there sometime that we tend to mumble over. Anyway, enough of that. I think it's going to be an interesting little discussion. I want to take you to Michigan. And before we do that, we got to tell you, hit the QR code to find the status chats that we have posted over on the YouTube page. So just hit that, and that should take you there. Freeze frame, whatever it takes. Use your Google Lens, and we'll go into our subject for today. Now, to be honest, I've been working a little bit with AI for the last couple of weeks, and I'm not any more impressed with it than I was when we first started talking about it 6, 8 years ago. It's just so flawed, and it's guilty of anything that we are. Bad information in gives bad information out. I mean, it's not going to fix it. It's kind of fun for memeing and for doing things of that nature, but it's a lot like a toddler. It doesn't take instructions well. What I've seen, I've been playing with VO and some of the other ones, and Win and Quinn, all these different ones that make videos from a single image, which is pretty neat. It's scary actually if you get it done well, but you just don't really have that much control over it. It tends to do what it wants to do. Now, I do want to talk to you a little bit about this news item I have for us, because it sort of relates to AI, because we've got so much stock money tied up in AI as if it's going to be the next big thing. I think it's probably a bubble going to burst, because I just don't know how well it works in general. I don't think it replaces the human being. I think it can do certain things, but I don't know that we necessarily need AI. We just need good programming. And unfortunately, some of the programmers are getting turned loose because of the AI doing the program for you. In fact, there are some sites that you can go to and ask, make me an app that does this, and it will string one together. And you may have to test it and tell it to refine it, but it does some stuff. But it's just not yet all that smart. So this subject is top earners are more afraid for their employment than lower income as AI threat increases. And this was 2 days ago. 3 days ago, was it Wednesday? Yes, 2 days ago. Jeff Cox, we've read from him. He seems like he's pretty level-headed. CNBC is a little on the left of center, but it's not as bad as some of them. And so we won't discount everyone's idea just because it's not dead on with our biases. So the key point to this says the prospect of being replaced by artificial intelligence is helping scare higher income workers and leading them to stay in their jobs longer, according to several recent surveys. The reason for the trend, our guess, is partially AI fear, as white-collar jobs are probably at greater risk, but we are open to other explanations, quote the UBS chief economist, Erin Captain. And I hope I got that name right. I don't mean to be disrespectful. Anyway, so we get down in here, and it's going to repeat some of the same stuff. We're going to look at the University of Michigan Consumers Index, and I'll show you a few charts. You can check the trends. And it talks about likewise, the Fed's monthly consumer survey shows unemployment angst at all around high. So yeah, it's high, and we show that the higher income people are more afraid than lower income. And finally, ADP, which I think is due out Wednesday. The ADP survey is due out next Wednesday, I think. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, ADP misses a lot because they're only doing a very small number of non-farm, non-government surveys. So it doesn't get all of the other stuff that we've got going on. So if we go back to looking at this, there we have our second bullet point repeated there. But here when we look at this is interesting. And we're going to look at this from the University of Michigan in the next tab. Higher earning workers in the U.S. are anxious about looming unemployment. Sentiment from the top third earners about trends in unemployment hasn't been this low since the Great Recession, as indexed by the University of Michigan. And see, here we are at 38, and we were 38 back here in 1980. Was worse after 2008 and a big collapse, but there it is. And it just talks about the rise of AI is causing both excitement and fear among investors, because they've got money piled in AI panning out. I'm not sure it's going to. It's just, where was the next best place to throw your money? So we've got that. I'll leave not a lot of this to look through. This is a pretty long article, actually, because it brings down here ADP coming up. But over the past year, University of Michigan has found sorry about the advertisement. Over the past year, University of Michigan survey has found a general decline in sentiment over the labor market. However, it's been most pronounced among the top 1/3 of earners. And then ADP's data on the private jobs picture, I had a guy not a couple of weeks ago was arguing that ADP was signaling that the world's coming to an end. And I said, you don't understand you don't know how to read the data that you have. ADP, like I said, is very narrow, and it works with their own data. That's their data they gather. Now they go out and fish some of it is done from their survey, but it's all private industry. It's not government. We don't know about the farm industries. We don't know how they're doing. That comes out of the Department, I think, of Agriculture with BLS, I think, puts it together, and even the Commerce Department puts some of that stuff together. ADP doesn't have access to those numbers, and of course it's a big stitch, so it takes them a month or so to get that data. ADP is leading in many cases, and it's not wrong to look at ADP's sentiment to see what the private industry are thinking about. Our businesses trying to cut back, so to speak, but that don't have the same long-term investment as agriculture has, or doesn't have some of the other stuff that we get out of the government. So we'll go back at that. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying you got to know what you're looking at. You got to know your dogs from your cat. Anyway, we could go through this. We're only halfway through this article, but I'm not going to have time to do it and still hit what I want to show you about the surveys. This is from the University of Michigan. This is the one they quoted at the top of it. Tables, agenda of political party variable, tables, agenda of stock ownership, final results. I want to look at, I think it is, if I can find my way back around here, let's go to tables. Let's look at by income, because they mention income. All right, here we have it. Let's see what we have. And I think bottom third, middle third, top third. So this is not too hard to look at, and we could compare them one to another if we bring them all up. I don't think I want to pull all the tables. We were looking at current financial situation compared with a year ago. This is going to be an index of belief. Let's look at PDF. I think will pop up for us. Well, that's our table. Where is our chart? I'm looking for my chart. Maybe I need to pull the next column. Yes, let's do that. By income, this is the one I'm looking for. All right, current component sentiment index, last 10 years, last 50 years, bring that up. And we see it's fairly small. I don't know, I can stretch that out. Maybe I can blow it up and slide it over. We see that we are going down in sentiment, coming from 2022 is our other ugly peak that we had. See, our green colors, our income bottom third, our green is the middle third, and our blue is the top third. So if you have more money, what this shows us in that narrow little view, let's see if I can make that go away. There we go. We are still better off if you have more money. Welcome to common sense to some extent. Let's go back one. Let's see, higher prices, reasons for worsening personal finances. Let's see who blames what, last 10 years. And we see higher prices, we're likely to be blamed by the lower third, where the upper third, the ones who can most afford to keep up with higher prices, they're not as blaming of the higher prices. And all this is kind of giving you what you already suspect, that we are broken up depending on where our capabilities to defend ourselves financially. Savings and retirement. Probability retirement income will be adequate. Now, this is a big one for people around the boomer age like me. If you're not already a boomer, maybe you're a late Xer or early Xer, I should say. Let's see what they have to say. And again, income top third, they think they're going to be adequate. The bottom third thinks they're going to not be. This is exactly what we expect. But look at the big jump since 2024. I'm not really sure how I can adequately believe that this is going to happen when the inflation that we had was back here in this area. So it's just here for you to look at. Now I want to take you back. Let's go back one. This is the surveys of consumers, University of Michigan. I did hit tables first, which if you want to Excel it yourself, charts. Then we go back to the home. Here's your main page. You could spend a month on this and trying to get familiar, and then you'd have another month's worth of data. Well, I think we've got that. Let's look at our 30-year mortgages, see what they're doing. I think they're trending down. I think that's looking good. And remember, our blue one is Mortgage News Daily. That's why it's so jagged. It's a daily schedule, as we remember. And the orange, of course, is Freddie Mac, government. And the other one, MBA, is Mortgage Bankers Association. So there we have that. Now, before we get to our numbers for this week, and let's knock that out, let's remind everyone to smash that subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, and leave a comment wherever you might have it. This is mainly a YouTube channel. Instagram, I don't follow Instagram, so you'll have to probably hit me either on the Facebook or the YouTube pages if you want to, or just hit me through the CallDelToSell website that is there. Let's look at the numbers for this week. For last week first, 2026, we had a decrease in availability. It's 26,747. I think that was 2 off from the previous week. 4206 increased under contracts, and the ratio then peaked up to 16%. And there I have a clerical error once more on this, despite my best efforts today. Here we go. As evidenced by our not changing on our 16% under contract ratio. I did get the rest of my arrows in the same exact direction, but the quantities changed. 26,622. We dropped a little bit, but it wasn't a lot, a little over 100 in the availables, and the under contracts increased a little more than 100, it increased a little bit more than the others dropped. So we're getting a little bit of a change in there, which I'm not really sure I'm seeing this trend come to fruition as I would expect it to be as we start heading into the green season. April is usually a big season for us. Our mortgage rates, as we just looked at, are going down, down, down. So that should be a good sign. And if we go back to the sentiment, people are just kind of bumming themselves out. So we can look at prices on homes maybe next week in the local markets. They're still holding up, I think, fairly well. But the mortgage rates look like they're going down, and they may not be enough to counter the bad news and the negative Nellies out there. But we should be starting to build up as we start head toward April, because about the third week in April, that should be a watershed moment for us, because we should see that's about our kind of peak time, our peak activity. We may not be closing as much in the third week in April, but usually we have a good showing of showings, if that's it. All right, well, let's get out of here. We've hit the numbers, haven't we? Let's hit our end saying for our words of wisdom. I think I got Thomas Sowell up on cue, and then we'll just get out of here.